Hi YouTube, and welcome back to part 6 of WinCC tutorials. In the last video we looked at being able to access our symbol table for objects that we place on our screen. So we actually did the start button here, and we did a press and release, and by doing that we created a set and reset for the bit 0.7. What we're also going to do is just at the same time is we're going to have a little look at the rest of these properties. So here we've already had a look at the general properties in the past. Let us just raise that up a little bit, and you can see that we have start and text symbols that we've placed onto the screen. You also have the ability to put a graphic on it instead of having text. So to do that, you just go to select your graphic. You can go to a graphics list, which we don't have, or a graphic that you can select from your pictures file, your pictures directory. So if we go to there, we select the arrow for graphics off. You see that you have some basic ones. You have got down arrow, home, left, right, or up arrow. You can also go and find them elsewhere on your computer. So we can find them by clicking that left hand button. I'll show you again. This one here, okay, and it'll open up a window so that you can go off into wherever you want to go to, which I am now going to look for my pictures, which are somewhere here. There we go. Open. There we go. So we've got a load of symbols. I've got a few logos for various things. We've got pictures of elbows and things for another job that I did. We've got logos that we've used, or other pictures that we've used for various things. So I could use, I'm just quickly looking. Oh hell, I'm a big Linux fan, so I tend to use Linux or Linux, however you like to pronounce it, all the time at home. So there we go, we've selected a graphic for when it's on. Sorry, for when it's off, when it's not pressed. To create a graphic for when it is on, if you want it to be anything different, then again you can do the same thing. Okay, so we'll go and find ourselves another picture, and I'll choose, what have we got? Oh, let's just say transfer data. So when we actually run this in run mode, you will see that when I click the button, I actually have two pictures there that it will change. So when it's off, when it's not pressed, I get little tucks. Okay, when I click it, it changes the value to or changes the picture, sorry, to something different. Much the same way as we did the stop in text, but we set stop in both on and off, and the same with reset. But here you can do it in that manner. So I'll be honest, oops, there we go, close that one off. Just allow the runtime to switch off. Generally what you would have is probably the same graphic for each state of the button, whether it be on or off. If you select it, don't put that graphic in when you press the button. If I quickly go back and run it again, you will see that when you press it, it stays on the same picture. Okay, so you don't have two states, it only recognizes one state and it uses a picture for both states. Okay, you can make the button invisible, which is quite useful. I've done it in on a couple of projects now on a conveyor where I may have a picture. So while we're here, let's just insert a quick picture. Okay, so we've got a graphics view. Let's just open up that graphics view, and I might put in let's under, sorry, general, we might want a picture on there again, so we'll put in let's put the heart in. Okay, alright, there we go, we've got a heart. If anybody's wondering why I've got a picture of a heart on my computer, I tend to use this symbol as a communications device, so that we have a heartbeat, so that the HMI and the PLC talk to each other over the communications, and while they are talking and while the communications is up and working, it allows the heartbeat to flash, and if the heartbeat disappears or it doesn't flash, then it means that I've potentially got a problem with communication, so it can bring up an alarm, hence why the heartbeat. Not that I'm not man enough to be able to accept that I've got hearts on my computer, but there we go. So if you have a graphics, for example, and this graphic may come on or it may go off, and when it comes on you may want to be able to press that graphic in its on state, so you can actually place an invisible button over that graphic, and again, if you run it, you won't see the button. Okay, you won't see the button, you see it's slightly outlined, but I can actually click it. Now you won't see any outline coming, you'll just see the faint outline, but it creates a button that's still working, it just happens to be invisible, and it can be handy for certain graphics if you want to use graphics like that. I'll just place that back there and put it back onto the graphic, and there we go. Okay, in the properties we've got basically the basics of the actual button itself. So you've got the appearance. Do you want black background? Do you want it background colour? If there is a background, I mean here we have a picture, so you know, it's slightly different, but I can change the foreground and it changes the colour of the text. Change the background, let's put it to blue. I've got the background on the button as blue. Focus colour is what happens when it's got focus, and the focus width could be whatever you want it to be. Okay, so if we run it again, and there's your focus colour, okay, when we got focus. If we've not got focus, then it disappears. Alright, I don't use focus colour so much, I'll be quite honest with you. Okay, but you can change the width of that line as well. Oops, but it's always got to be a minimum of 1. Layout, well, this is height and position, so I can increase the height, width, or I should say width and height, okay, to make it bigger. This way, when you're getting two buttons the same, you can see that they're a little difference in size. Sometimes it can be a little bit fussy to try and get this correct. So what you can do is say, well, it's 86 by 74, so click into there, 86 by 74, and hey presto, you've got a button exactly the same size. Position wise, well, again, I can move that position, okay, up and down, so it just gives you that. The other thing is auto sizing here. Be very, very careful when you're using auto sizing, because it auto sizes the button to the size of your text or to whatever your picture is going to be. So if that's a natural size of the picture that you had, it will expand that to your picture size. So be careful when you're using that. There we go. It could create some funny things happening. Okay. So I drop that off there, and of course then you've got to make your button the right size again. Alright. Text, again, just positioning, if you want it to go to the left or to the right, or keep it in the centre. Vertical, again, top, middle or bottom. I sound like Barrymore at the moment, and that's not a good thing. You've also got the ability to flash. Barrymore again. Standard flashing just means that if we see in the run mode that the button is now flashing, and it's flashing based on the colours of your foreground and background. Okay, So if you look at, under the appearance, I might change that to a background of red and a foreground of yellow. Then we can run that and we'll see that now flashes between red and yellow as opposed to the black and the white, or the black and the grey, sorry. Notice your text will automatically change as well. Okay, you've got text size and type and whether it's and the style. Okay, so we can make it bold, we can make it 18, and we can make it, I don't even know what that one looks like, but there you go. Okay, oops. So flashing we've done. Miscellaneous, right? Layers, info text and layers. I don't know how many people have dealt with AutoCAD or something similar in the past, but layers are similar, and we'll go into those in depth later, and the info text we'll also deal with a little later. But layers can get a little more complicated. You may not always use them, but there's our button flashing again. Okay, so I will deal with the info text and everything else at a later date with that particular thing. Security, well, authorizations, we'll go into authorizations at a later date. Generally, if it's going to be certain buttons, you don't want any authorization at all. You leave it as basic, but you may have administration, monitor and an operator usage for it. So you may have a system where you want to log in first and then allow those buttons to be used. Animation, we've got appearance of object. We'll do this again in a couple of the other icons that we'll use, or objects that we'll use at a later date. But again, these enable you to have, for example, the visibility enabled, and you can have that, as I put there, M0.1. If that becomes true, then that becomes visible or hidden, depending on these two here. You have to tell it whether it's a bit or an integer that you're looking at. So again, you can make this visible on a certain value or invisible on another value. So those are the project's states there. You can enable the object, exactly the same thing. You enabled it based on a value. Oops. Based on a value. Remember, make sure you tell it what it is, whether it's a bit or an integer, and whether you want it enabled on that or disabled on that bit. And the rest of them are the same. Okay, you can move them based on a value. So, you know, I don't know, you wouldn't want to move a button necessarily, but you may have an object, a picture or something on there that is moving along a conveyor system, and you may want it to kind of visually track as it's going down the system. And again, direct movement, you can, once enabled, you can tell it to start, and where it's Y, start X position and start Y position is, and how much you want it to offset by, and it'll increase that movement along the way. Okay, that would have to be an integer though. We've dealt with the events, appearance, yeah, all of those things, the properties in there, and then general. Yeah, we've done the text, the graphic and the invisible. So there we go, that's the basic look of the properties, and to be quite honest, the properties are virtually the same for every object that you place on your screen. We will go through a few more as we go down, but it's just a case of playing with those objects and those properties of that object, and you'll quite easily see what they're all about. Alright, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the